everybody, welcome to Liquid Lunch. It's, we just had some vegan cheeses and some mulberries that were brought to us by Veronica Key, my co-host today. Veronica.
Hello.
Hi. You brought those mulberries down, and you said they grow on a tree.
Yes, I picked them this morning in the wild, and mulberries will stain your fingers and they grow in the tree. That's how you know the difference between a mulberry and a blackberry.
Well, they look a little different too, but...
Well, they were white, which you probably have never had.
That's true.
And then they were dark as well, two different trees, and they're yummy.
And I tested it the first time.
Yeah. Have you ever had mulberries before?
No, just this. Today was the first time I've ever
Free
tested.
food!
Yeah.
I think it was my first time with mulberries as well.
Wow.
And I thought... you hear about the mulberry bush, but now you're telling us they grow on trees.
Well, remember we talked about too bad we didn't have trees in the city that were fruit trees where you could just walk along and pick your food.
Okay.
Oh, and you were talking about the homeless people you came in today, which you probably don't get up there north of the 401 as much. So maybe we can talk about that a little bit later. But right now we're here with Dr. Qasim Farah, who's been here before. Great to see you, Qasim.
Yeah, nice to see you again.
And you're an Islamic scholar, right? And today we're going to be talking about Sharia law, and there's some, controversy about it, probably more in Great Britain than in Canada.
Yeah.
But as we see Muslim people moving into Europe and into Canada and the U.S., it's becoming a topic of some contention, or, at least people are thinking about it and talking about it, so we're going to be talking to you about it. But before we get into that, maybe can you just give us a little bit of your background and how you came to be an Islamic scholar, your journey to where you are today?
Yeah, okay, so actually I started learning Islam since I can say the age of 4 years old. I've been taken to an Islamic school to study the Quran.
And you're from Somalia?
From Somalia,
originally?
Yeah, when I was 4 to 5 years old. And that's normal, it's our culture. And so I came from a family where our role it just naturally became that no one can reach at the age of 10 years old before they finish the whole Quran, recite all the Quran, and memorize it on top of their head.
Before they're the age
before
of 10?
Before they reach the age of 10.
Right.
So I memorized the Quran when I was 8 years old, and then I learned the meaning of the Quran at the age of 9 to 10 years old. Then after that, I have been always in the Islamic studies, and I joined the University of Islamic Studies. And then I studied Sharia. I got my bachelor in Sharia, and then after that, I went to Malaysia, and I did my master's degree in comparative law, which is to compare between Islamic law and the Western legal theories.
Okay, so and you went to Cairo University for your bachelor's degree?
Yeah.
Okay.
Then after that, I've slightly changed my field to environmental studies, and I got another master's degree in environmental law and policy, and I also did PhD in environmental law, and another PhD in marine policy and management, marine environmental management.
And then you came to Canada at some point?
I did my last PhD here in Canada.
And PhD?
At York University, yeah.
And what was that in?
And it was marine policy and marine management.
Okay, all right. So if anybody needs a marine biologist...
policy, sorry.
Policy, okay.
Yeah,
so if a whale gets stuck, call someone else.
Okay, good.
Okay, Qasim, so now, you were telling me the other day when you came in that because your bachelor's was in Sharia law, right? And that your eyes were open when you studied comparative law. Is that true? Do you want to just tell us kind of what that was like?
Yeah, actually, when I studied deeply, I figured out that most of the previous Islamic scholars, they made mistake, either intentionally or unintentionally. God knows what was in their hearts. but they and somehow they undermined the Quran, which is I say it is the only source of Islamic teachings and Islamic law. But I was taught when I was studying my bachelor and my master's degree, I was told that there are 5 sources or up to 7 sources of Islamic studies and Islamic law. Then those are like number 1, Quran, number 2, what's called Sunnah, the prophetic tradition, and again, analogy, self-struggle or self-exertion, what's called al-ijtihad, and then so many things like community cultures and so on and so on. And then finally, I realized after I have read all of them that actually the only source of Islamic source is the Quran, but these are only tools to understand the Quran.
I see.
And they are tools which are upgrading your brain to understand the Quran, not that they are interpreting the Quran. Because the Quran was there when they were innovated. So they can't interpret the Quran.
So they're tools for people who are studying the Quran to interpret the Quran.
Yeah, to facilitate them in order to understand
their
the
understanding
Quran.
of the one source.
Yes.
Which is
the Quran, yeah.
Okay. Okay, so now let's talk about Sharia law a little bit, because I mean you studied comparative law. So you studied Sharia law, common law,
civil law,
coded laws. So what did you discover about? And now we have, as Islamic people are moving into the Oh, you're getting a call. It'll stop after a while. I know. The same thing happens to me.
It's live.
No problem.
We're keeping it real here on Liquid Lunch today.
So
it happens.
I would say to anyone, please don't call me. Please make sure you don't call me. And I have to say maybe in Somali.
It's that one person you didn't tell.
Yeah, and I have to say it in Somali. fadlan ha isoo wicina waxaan ku jiraa live-kaas la socda markaa dadka isoo wacayo raalli ahaada. Sorry.
Okay, great. So there's some conversation about, there are Islamic communities in the West, in Britain particularly, that I've heard, that are advocating to have Sharia law in their communities. And so it's a topic of some that people want to, that is being explored, and we're exploring it here today. Why don't you just tell us a little bit about Sharia law to start?
Well, so first it is that topic which is quite controversial. And what I would say, first of all, the Sharia is that thing that almost everybody is either fearing of Sharia or either promoting Sharia. But I can say only maybe 1.00 people understand the meaning of the Sharia.
Okay.
I can say maybe millions of people, 1% understands the meaning.
Maybe that's the problem. People really don't understand what it is.
They don't understand what it is at all.
And, what is it that they're afraid of? So maybe that's something that you can tell everyone.
So first of all, let me begin with by commenting the way you said now. You said Sharia law. Almost everybody says that, Sharia law. Some Muslims and many and non-Muslims, they say Sharia law. But it is not. Sharia is Arabic word which means the law and some other things. So you are saying the word, you are self-repeating, saying twice. One time in Arabic, one time in English.
Right.
That's one. The other thing is that Sharia in Islam, it is all about a comprehensive lifestyle. A lifestyle which is encompasses everything, be it the laws and national jurisdiction, the law that applies to individuals, household, and neighborhood, community, country, and the nations. Then policy making, administration, management, and doing business transactions. All those things are lifestyle.
So it's basically a way of living.
Yeah. That's terrible.
They're saying, I didn't understand what you said.
Yeah. So, and I should tell them. Don't call me.
It's okay. Okay. All right. But that's interesting.
Make sure you've got yourself in there.
See, Veronica, you didn't know you were getting yourself in for all this
I know,
today, right?
I know. I just
It's-
want to make
it's
sure
a
he's
very,
on. There you are. There you are. Okay,
very
great.
serious
Yeah, I think it's just a
conversation.
really good idea to
So-
sort of
Then,
explain this lifestyle.
Yeah, I just
Yeah.
want to sort of reiterate what you just said. So you're saying that it's a whole lifestyle that applies to individuals, to businesses, to the community, to the whole country, in a sense, right?
So everybody applies to to themselves, number one, and then to their family, like that. And it's included like praying, your worshiping God, all those things. It's just your day-to-day activities. That's the meaning. It is not legal codes only.
Okay.
Then God, when He is explaining the Sharia, says in the word shir'atan wa minhajan, which means it is a comprehensive lifestyle and methodology. The methodology of doing that thing is how you will do it.
So it's a very specific directions or prescription how to go about.
Yeah, it's
your
actually
life.
it's guideline. It's a guideline of the life, that because God didn't tell everything in the Quran.
Right.
It's just a guideline. If you have that problem, then that's the key, the hint of
I
what
see.
you will be
Okay,
doing.
So if you have a question, you can refer to the guidelines.
To the guidelines, yeah, and then you can apply it according to your situation, your circumstances, your civilization, where you are, all that.
Which sounds to me, that kind of reminds me in a sense of like common law, in the sense that it's not necessarily a specific code that applies in all circumstances. It's open enough that it allows you to interpret the law for specific circumstances which were perhaps unforeseen when the guidelines were created.
So it's like that, and then it is that just a normal lifestyle, and it's up to the person to apply it within themselves, to do what they how they know that in Islam basically is that you must have good relationship in two ways. One is horizontal, the other one is vertical. The horizontal one is your relationship with God, your creator, and the horizontal one is the one that the relationship that you have with the rest of mankind, creatures, animal, everything.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you're saying the Sharia applies to both of those relationships?
Yeah, and
Horizontal and vertical.
Sharia means
It's not what you were thinking.
no. It's all
It
about
wasn't?
means doing. No, it is.
Horizontally meaning
It is
worldwide,
not that it now.
on this plane.
Yeah, now it is. It
Oh,
has
don't
been-
get into the flat Earth thing now, Veronica.
Because it's being interpreted as something which is negative, which is something which is horrifying, and like killing and so. But it is the opposite. Sharia is all about being merciful, kind, loving, and justice to everyone.
Then why are people getting this wrong? It sounds like it's, utopia almost.
Yes.
So what is it that people are misinterpreting?
When I researched, I found that sometime back, maybe like several hundred years ago, and there were one or two Islamic scholars who were at their time, maybe they were the best. And they were living in only a small town. They didn't know what was going on in the world, and there were no communication. There were no such technology and civilization. So they just put their interpretation on their own way, which is referring to their culture, the Arabian culture, which was more like barbarian culture, killing, torturing, and undermining women and tribes and so on. That is where the interpretation came from. And actually, in many cases, it seems that it was intentionally diverted from their meanings. And so from there, I can see that some people who were not Muslim, maybe not Muslims, maybe they were captured by the Muslims and they overtook their governments. And then after that, they decided to be a part of them, but destroy that faith or the guidelines from within. That's how I understand it. It is,
Or
it could be
maybe,
possible.
or it could be. I mean, but we don't really know what their motivations were.
Yeah, we
or
don't
who
know what
did
they
it,
did. Yes,
right?
yeah.
They may have been simply misinterpreting it,
Uh-huh.
right? Or
Yeah.
interpreting it for their own purposes, whatever
Yeah.
that might be. I mean, we've seen the same. I mean, think about things like the Inquisition, which nobody expected.
Yeah.
And one thing they did is that they were not, when they see a verse from the Quran, they were supposed, the Quran always interprets within itself. When you see one verse, number one, you have to read the passages before it, and that after it, and in that context, you have to read together and then understand the meaning.
So was the message brought down from God
Yeah.
to the scholars, and then they wrote it? Is
The
that
Quran, it was not sent to scholars, to layman, everyone.
so? How did this book come about? What's the history of that even in that this whole lifestyle?
This book, because God sent it to mankind, then it is up to the individual to read and understand. Not that they wait interpretation from scholars.
Right.
And that's what happened. They relied on somebody, and that person, maybe his knowledge is so limited, maybe he has another intention, he misled people. It happened. And then others, they say that particular scholar said such and such things. And they became like quacks, saying that he said. And
Misinterpreted.
this is misinterpreting. That is going in up to now. And one thing which is big mistake, and which is very common now, is that people do not read the Quran how it should be. Like, for example, when they see one word, they have to see the whole Quran, how the meaning of that word is from other verses.
So it has, in the context of the whole Quran.
Of the whole Quran, they have to understand it together. But what they do, they don't refer to the Quran itself, they refer to other books, which are like called the Sunnah when it comes to the Sunni, and Shia, they have their own way of prophetic tradition.
Right.
They have different sources. And also then they refer to what's called all the previous scholars, what they said. And they say that is something which was unanimously agreed upon by those scholars.
So it sounds like that there are different sects of Islam, right? The Sunnis, the Shiites, for example.
Yeah.
So they have their own way of interpreting it, their own tools to interpret the Quran. And so some of this, they may, different sects, as in, Christianity, may interpret the law as expressed in the Quran differently, just like Protestants and Catholics can interpret the Bible differently.
Well,
Yeah.
anybody really.
It's
It's
like that,
everybody's
yeah.
own
Well, yeah.
interpretation of it, right?
That happens in all the religions.
Well, of course, because we're all trying to figure it out. Okay. So now, what are you saying here? Because there is still the controversy exists, and you've already expressed that.
Yeah.
Maybe a very small number of people, whether they're Muslim or not, understand Sharia Law.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But there are people that are advocating for
Sharia. Yeah.
for Sharia in places like Great Britain.
Yeah. So what caused this? That a small group of the people, they advocate to implement the Sharia, and majority of the human being, be them Muslim or not Muslim, they are afraid of the Sharia, and the cause is that, and this Sharia, which should be very comprehensive to human life, was limited to 5 cases only 5 cases, which they call al-hudud in Arabic, and in English it's called capital punishment.
Oh, okay. So
Only 5 of them, they said, and all the 5 were misinterpreted and wrongly hijacked to different ways.
all right. So let me ask you. So these 5 cases, are they in the Quran?
Yes, but it is not the way they put it, they expose it today. It is not how they think today.
All right. So what are you saying? So are you saying that Islamic judges make their decisions based on these 5 cases?
Yeah, and not all of them, and like I can say even majority of them, the previous ones, those who were the former scholars, made some mistakes. They are human beings, and then and they are everybody. No one is infallible. They are just like anyone else. What happened is that others, they just followed their ways. They just follow the footsteps of what the previous guys did, and those guys, they did something wrong. And now if they look at the Quran, they can figure out that those 5 capital punishments, none of them is on its stage. Like say, one is called, one is fornication, the other one, anyone who commits the illegal sexual intercourse, that adultery is number 1. Number 2 is what they call theft. Number 3 is highway robbery. Number 4 is defamation. If you say about something, someone, and you defame their dignity. And then number 5 is when, number 5 is, killing, murdering.
Right.
If somebody kills somebody, then the murder.
Is that where the term highway robbery comes
No,
from?
it's different. Highway robbery.
Sorry, I just couldn't help myself. I was like,
killing
What?
it's like that. Somebody
is that
kills
actually in
somebody
there?
for no reason, or maybe they have dispute and he killed. But highway robbery is someone who is more worse than that. He killed maybe many people.
That's what
He
highway
went to
robbery
the-
is?
yeah.
Okay. So it's a killing
Yeah.
in a mass?
Yeah, and it's the theft. Then these 5 only.
Okay. So are those 5
Those are the laws.
crimes that
I
you
guess.
just
The crimes.
Yeah.
those are need capital punishment?
Those are the capital punishments.
Those for those crimes you get capital punishment.
Yeah, which is known as.
So let's go to number
identical
1, illegal sex. What does that mean? Like, you have to be legally married?
She needs
if
to
you've
know the
been adultery?
details
Yeah,
just in
yeah.
case.
Like, is there an age? Like, I really want to know with, women getting raped. Like, I just want to know what exactly does that mean?
That means no matter what age you are in, but if somebody reaches the puberty age, be it most of the Islamic scholars agreed on that, and to reach the puberty age, which is taking responsibility, is when someone reaches at the age of 18. Others have at the age of 15. So wherever it is, when someone reaches that level, then that person cannot commit adultery. They should marry if they are in need of having the opposite person.
Okay.
So that is one. And if they do an illegal sexual intercourse, they should be punished for lashing 100 times. But it is impossible to testify that, because then they must have 4 people who are in good credit, reliable persons, to say, I have seen.
Don't you think this needs to be updated and made a little bit more current?
No, even.
I mean, 4 witnesses on a rape. How does that work?
Not
know,
rape. No, rape is highway robbery.
Oh, that
Rape
is
is
highway
that's
robbery.
serious,
Okay,
yeah.
that's
Rape
not
is
highway
rape,
robbery. That's
yeah.
something else robbery.
Yeah, rape is very serious. But this is
Okay.
with the consent of the 2 people. Then they
So
do
yeah,
that.
if somebody's not consenting and they're outside of their marriage, you need 4 witnesses. How is that ever going to happen?
It never happens, but it is only why Allah put there in the Quran is just to avoid it happen, because it's just to make the people that they are afraid of getting into that trouble, then they stay away of it.
Okay, so I mean, what about 2 people who are?
I think we're going to be stuck on this topic.
Well,
Yeah.
well, I mean,
I love
it's
it.
a big topic. I mean, lots of.
Yeah.
We're just trying to get clarity on
exactly.
this, and even if we run out of time, we can have you back.
Yeah.
It's an important topic, but. So, what about 2 people who are committing adultery? So that's
Both of them.
They
yeah.
both get
They're
100
both-
lashes?
Yeah,
they're
each
both
one.
100 lashes.
Yeah,
But that's not
But
capital
with
punishment.
Yeah.
what? With what? A
It's
whip?
capital-
A wet
with-
noodle.
And somebody actually sits there and counts?
Yeah, somebody counts, but it is
The
not
judge.
like...
It's only
it's not-
100. Even you can
99.
count
Wait,
that
I
high,
lost
Veronica.
track. I think it's 78. Like that's,
No,
that's
this
terrible.
one,
They
you-
need to be updated. Come
Yeah,
on.
it is this way. And the lashes is not something which is very serious. You take a very small stick up
Yeah.
to this, say, and it's just to put them small, like this way. You will not put in that way very strongly, just slightly, 1, 2, 3, 4, like that. But the main purpose is to put them in shame, that people
Shame,
see it,
right.
and when they see it, they say,
Why
this
didn't they
guy,
just do this? Shame on you.
that is the meaning. That is the meaning.
Why don't they just
It's
do that?
It's to make like protest, to put them in public and put that lashes on them, and then to say, look, this guy is a womanizer. Stay away from him. This girl is like that. It's just to to say shame on you. That's the whole point. But in the first place, it is impossible to prove because 4 people must testify that they have seen this man's staff entering this woman's staff inside, and not only one time.
So that's
like-
what I'm saying. Don't you think these laws need to be updated?
But then this is means the main aim, the objective is not to prove even. The objective is not that people not to come in public, not to have sex in public streets. That's the whole point.
Right,
If
so
they
the-
do it
the-
inside their house, nobody
So
knows.
what he said, I think, is he said the point is not to actually punish people
pun-
this
yeah.
way,
Yeah.
because the chances of all
Of
these
proving-
circumstances
It's not going to
happening.
happen.
yeah.
But what it does do, it moves that kind of behavior out of the public sphere.
Yeah.
And who, I mean,
And the public's eyes.
Yeah.
and we
It's
don't really
not to
want it in
bring-
the public
it's like,
sphere anyway.
Okay, it's
do
like
we?
Canada. Here in Canada, you can't. It is illegal to have sex in the street, right? It's just like that.
Yeah.
So not
No
to
pride
bring
there.
it in public.
No
yeah,
pride
that,
parade.
that is the whole point.
One day off.
And well, it is like say how that one was completely misinterpreted. And what happened? Is now
Yeah, because
see
you know what?
they
Honestly,
stoning
that
to death.
sounds pretty harsh.
They do stoning to death now.
For what?
They
For-
do.
for-
From that level of giving them 100 lashes and like saying to them, shame on you guys,
Oh.
that one reached to the level of stoning to death.
So what you're saying is for that same crime that the Quran prescribes the punishment of 100 lashes.
Yeah.
But now certain Sharia courts are administering the death penalty.
Yes,
Escalating
death
it.
penalty. But and we don't know how they came up with that. And God says in the Quran very clearly this way, which is one verse here, which is okay. I'll get from here, but it is that you have only in the beginning, before God started even talking about this, He said some words in advance, which shows that this law should never be changed, and it should be the way it is. It is this way, here. And what happened is that even this book was Quran is an English version, but the translation, there are mistakes in the translation.
Okay.
And that mistake came from the beginning of the interpretation. Here is that God says, maybe you read it. by
No,
yourself.
you read it.
Okay, it is this way. And it is the beginning of the chapter, which is chapter 24. God says, this is a surah, which means a chapter, which we have sent it down and made that within it obligatory and revealed therein verses of clear evidence that you might remember. So it means this is one chapter. That means make sure you take care of this chapter. Make sure you apply it as specific. It is the
Okay.
first time God
Okay.
said this is one chapter.
Okay.
And then said, and there are obligatories in it, there are the commandments in it, make sure you do the way it is. Then it says, the woman or man found guilty of illegal sexual intercourse, lash each one of them with 100 lashes. So each one of them, whether they married before or not, whether they are who or who, it doesn't matter. 100 lashes in public.
But they're not specific on what the lashes are.
The
Leather,
lash-
wet,
No, the lashes.
you know,
which,
bamboo. Like doesn't say.
There are other verses and the prophetic tradition which indicates no one can hit somebody's face,
Yeah.
even in the banishment. No one can hit somebody with a strong whips like that, but it should be something which is just a sign of.
It's really a symbolic.
Yeah, it's
Symbolic.
It's a
It's
symbol.
all
It's a
symbolic. Yeah.
So is stoning symbolic?
No, stoning doesn't even exist in Islam.
That's what
It
he's
is
saying.
up
is
to
that
them.
the stoning is not in the
Yeah.
Quran.
It's
Okay,
not in the
good.
Quran, and it
But
has
this is great
no
to know
place-
this
It has
this
no
stuff,
place
right?
in Islam.
Yeah.
This one was changed to stoning to death. which
Where? Who changed it?
we don't know. We just see it going on. But it started from some time back, like 100 years ago.
Okay.
Several hundred years ago.
All right. Now,
Then that is one of the reasons why many people are scared of the Sharia. Then the point is that there are people who change the meaning of Sharia to something which is horrifying, which is terrible, and it is not that way.
okay. So, and basically, you're also, correct me if I'm wrong, but you're saying the same thing about cutting off a thief's hand or killing for apostasy.
Yeah.
Are-
Killing for apostasy has no place in Quran, in Islam at all. Actually, there are 500 verses which are all repeating to say, if anybody leaves Islam, then it's up to them. Don't insult them. Don't look at them down. Don't even undermine them. Don't touch them.
Okay.
Freedom.
So, okay, now, so it seems a couple issues here. So, first of all, the people advocating for Sharia in the West say they may not have the strict interpretation, the relatively benign interpretation of the Quran that you have, right? So that's one issue, right?
Yeah, okay.
And the other issue, it just seems, is that, like, here you are, you're saying, and you're a scholar, you know the Quran. And what you're saying is that even Islamic judges and Sharia advocates don't understand
Yes.
Sharia,
Yeah.
right? So, what are you advocating for here
Well,
today?
I'm advocating, first of all, Sharia is all about people to have their own life. So what is important is that the society, they have their own laws, which came up after a referendum, after parliament passed it, after there were people who are lawmakers and they decided to do that. So national jurisdictions can come from the society. And that's how it was in the beginning when Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, was ruling the city Medina. It was all about consensus and common sense. It was not that by the book, do this one. People were coming together, having discussion, and then making their own rulings. So that it should be like that. Then the government can have their national jurisdiction in that way, which could apply to the laws and all types of laws, bylaws.
Right.
all of
So, but, I get it. So, in other words, Sharia is not a code of law prescribed in the Quran. It is really
It's a guideline.
a guideline
It's a
of
touch. That's
principles
yeah.
that can help illuminate
Yes. That way.
people in a society to create the kind of laws that are going to make sense.
Yes.
Right? Is
Yeah,
that accurate?
Yeah. Depending on their situation and their lifestyle and what is possible in that particular era.
Right, because, yeah. Now, sometimes, I mean, regardless of that,
Yeah.
so people are, you're saying, misinterpreting the Quran.
Definitely.
And so those people, some of those people who are misinterpreting the Quran will be responsible for making laws in their jurisdiction, whatever it may be.
Yeah,
And same here in the West. I mean, you know, our lawmakers in Ottawa are often in many people's opinions, making the wrong laws.
Yes, actually, this their former group of Islamic scholars, who maybe I can say they were self-styled scholars, because there were many other scholars who were not mentioned or only a few people know. Then these guys, they said they are the scholars. And what happened was they did not only misinterpret the Quran, they even ignored the Quran and relied on some other sources, being the consensus of the other scholars and what has been said by somebody and what is so and so, some other stuff, what they call prophetic tradition even, which and 90% could be wrong. So when they did all that, their main purpose, if you see someone who is advocating for Sharia, they are in two groups. One group who are ignorant, really, and other group, not that they are ignorant of everything, but ignorant about when it comes to Sharia. And another group who wants to rule the people.
In other words, they're just interested in power.
So it's interesting. It's a political. They want to gain political power. So in order to gain that political power, they use this matter, which say, oh, people left the God's law. God's law is this way. This Sharia, we are bringing the Sharia. But if you ask them, okay, we are bringing the Sharia, fine, but bring us one case or one even article of the law that you have, which is being unanimously agreed upon by all the Islamic scholars. Mm-hmm. None of the cases is unanimously in agreement. The ulama, what they call the Islamic scholars, differ in each of those cases.
Okay.
So there are, like one group says, okay, this person must be punished with like capital punishment, imprisonment, and so on. So another one says no, another one says no, another one says. So there are not even two who are in agreement. What's the point? That's number one. Number two, who is going to rule that Sharia? This particular section, are they ISIS? Are they this group? Are they Shia? Are they Sunni? Who knows? It is the individual who is trying to reach a power, and he uses that flag of saying Sharia.
Okay.
Like ISIS. Which
So,
is,
Qasim, we're just about out of time here today.
Yeah.
I mean, we can certainly have you back and continue the conversation, but what do you want to leave people with today? What thought do you want to leave?
Well, I want to live with the people that, first of all, brothers and sisters who are Muslim and even non-Muslims, please look at those 5 capital punishments, al-hudud al-khamsa, and then you take each one of them and read them from the Quran, the wording. And stoning to death has no root and nothing in Islam. It is opposite to the reason Islam came to was to stop those kinds of human rights violation, which starts from stoning to death, and also what is called apostasy and hand amputation. That one, actually, I have just drafted some words here, but we don't have time. It is very serious. I have 21 verses which are explaining the meaning of hand cutting, which all of them show that cutting hand is not amputation at all. So it has so many different other meanings, which altogether comes to imprison the person. The thief should be taken to the prison only.
So,
just to imprison them,
okay.
Not to cut their hands, not to hit them, just to take them out of the society, so that a society will relax.
All right. So I think that's a good. I'm going to see if I can summarize. Correct me if I'm wrong, because I don't want to go off base here. But it's what you say. If the Quran is the word of God, and if people believe that, and you're using that to inform how you govern your society, how you do your laws, then really look at the Quran and don't. Look at that. Look at it within the right context.
Yeah,
and make sure it's not being manipulated by people in it only for their own power. Yeah.
So I say that most of the Muslims are very busy in reading books other than Quran.
Right.
And that is why they led to astray. they are not on the right track. Because
So they need to get back to
they
basics,
need to get back, so go back to the Quran.
to
That's
the
what I'm
base
saying.
book.
And when you are interpreting the Quran, do not take the Quran to follow what people said or what is called the Hadith, the prophetic tradition. But those others should come under the Quran. So the Quran is the only book we have.
Okay.
We don't have tens and hundreds of other books. That's it.
Okay,
Yeah.
Qasim, great to
Yeah.
have this conversation.
Okay,
Do you want to
thanks.
give any contact information if somebody wants to reach you?
Well, yeah, if anybody wants to reach at me, then my website is www.qasimhersi.com, which is QASIMHERSI.com. And my Facebook is Al Qasim, which means ALQASIM space XIRSI. So you can follow me, or you can follow me at my also pages like Political Revolution in Somalia.
Okay,
Bye.
great.
Yeah.
So come back soon.
Yeah, soon. Okay. Yeah.
Okay, great.
Okay.
All right.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Great,
It's okay.
great.
Just we're just going to wrap it up. Not wrap it up. No, we've got Leslie Edwards coming on, relationship coach. So we'll maybe we can dive more into this whole fornication thing. Okay, Veronica. All right. We'll be right back here on thatchannel.com.